Talk shoe. Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 719. My name is Eric Nelson, and with me today, I have my regular co-host, Bob Plankers. Today is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's turning into a nice day. I guess I haven't looked outside, but yeah, I don't know. Spring is sprung here. It was raining this morning and it's warming up. So yeah, Wisconsin is good.
Bay Area, same thing. Yeah, we're 60, 70, got rain, gardens in, it's crops are starting to grow. Living the dream. Like put a strawberry patch in. I call it my snail patch because in California, if you put in strawberries, you immediately start fighting the snails as soon as.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. That's fun, but it's beautiful weather here, so can't complain at all. And a lot going on. But so we're going to talk a little bit about Home Lab today. We had a guest that bailed on us, but we're getting ready for Connect, and there's been a lot of buzz around Home Lab. And William's been making progress. Me and Frankie been making progress on the Code Labs. The Advantage program's up and running. People have been downloading their bits, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And I'll give you an update on making, a VCF run on the old vExpert Nook, right? And I'll talk a little bit about what I've done and success and failure so far in my land of making that guy perform at a higher level than it probably should be. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And if you listen to this, you probably don't, you'll probably be bored when you come to the Connect Lab, because I'll probably give you the insights of things that I'm going to do at St. Louis. So St. Louis, we're all going to be there. Connect in St. Louis, April 23rd, 24th, 25th. Hawk's going to be there. Chris is going to be there from VCF. The leadership of VCF is going to be there. Michael Roy, Bob Plankers himself.
I'm doing the security session now. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I saw that you got that one on, so that's good. Corey and I are going to be there. Gene Williams is going to be there. Brad Tompkins, everybody's going to be there. Should be a good party on Thursday night. We have Birds of Feathers on Wednesday afternoon. So if you want to come in and talk AI and how AI is going to, revolutionize everything in the data center. We got a couple of guys coming in from Europe to talk AI. I forget the guys that are coming. Birds of Feathers there, then presentations for the rest of the week. So it's definitely going to be a great show. And I just got done with the community show last week, Higher Logic as a community show. Same kind of thing, 3-day format, $500 to go. And let me tell you, it's a lot of fun to go to like a lower scale, not so big, more intimate, get to know everybody. I really enjoyed it. Nice to go to a show that isn't Explorer, right? Not saying Explorer's bad, but the smaller size 3-day event, I really like it. I really do. So should be good.
It's more relaxed, and we've talked a couple of times about how and Brad was talking about it when we had him on, that everyone likes the hallway track, the joke of the hallway track. Well, what if we just made a whole conference that was hallway track hallway track-esque, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'll be, like I said, I'll be down there. I'm doing the security presentation, and then I'll come bum around with you, and I'm doing some of the Q&A. It's not just AI for Birds of the Feather. There'll be VCF topics.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're doing 2 of them that day.
Right? So yeah, I'll be there, and you can grill me on things that I may or may not know at this point. So yeah. It'll be fun.
It should be it should be fun. That's what I'd say from last week, as it was actually relaxing and fun versus high stakes Vegas, right? Different environment. So all right, so let's swing by Corey Romero and talk vExperts and what's happening up in Utah. Corey, how you doing?
Doing great, actually. Yeah, so weather here, it's been snowing the last 2 days. So got lots of snow. We get this little tease of gets up to 75 degrees. It feels great. And the next day you wake up and it's just blizzard, right? So that's typical Utah. But it's stopped now. It's great outside. It's been warming up. As far as vExpert goes, so on Monday, April 14th, we're going to hold our second vExpert Knowledge Hour call. And that's going to be with Frankie Baragon, James Tiffany, and Stefan McTay. And 180 V experts have already signed up for this call. So we're going to talk about how to pass your VCP exam and the process, and that entire process, and what it takes to pass. Passing the exam, passing the exam will, not only bring more value to the IT practitioner, but to also, be able to obtain the VCF home lab licenses, right? And so, kind of just sharing the knowledge and sharing the value, and then just a real quick hour on what, just as quick, as much data as we can get in on best practices on passing this exam, since Frankie and the guys will be done with their series, and they'll have gained a bunch of knowledge on that. And then I've got several emails going out this week. Probably going to go out tomorrow, possibly Friday. It's going to be on a VMware Explorer and a couple other opportunities with that I'm going to share with the experts. So that's it for the expert.
All right. Nice.
Very
Well,
cool.
yeah, good to keep everybody engaged, right? And good
Absolutely.
to run at things.
Well, and speaking of Explorer too, the call for papers is open for, I think, another couple of weeks, and so people should get their stuff in. And so that's important note.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when that closes, don't miss the deadline there. It's going to be more community focused, more practitioner focused than it's ever been. So.
Yeah. And community papers, if you're an external person, community papers this year will get you a pass. So
that's super cool.
Previous years did do that. This year they're going to do that. So should be great to see what we got coming in. That should be busy. They're going to make 80 seat theaters in the community area this time. So in the hub, we'll have 2 code and community. We'll have some spring, but also bigger theaters. So we're going bigger on community. There's no question about that. So
the community is going to be separate from the spring theater, right?
In previous years, no. So in previous years, we used to have spring sessions in the code theater.
Yeah,
right? That's close enough. Last year they broke it out and gave spring their own little area, and this year they're consolidating it back again.
Oh,
they're doing an 80 seat, so they're like, okay, we'll just do bigger theaters, have to developer code, automation, all that, and then community. And much when V Brown Bag used to bring in sponsors, V Bag would come record the community sessions, but V Brown Bag has, I think, bowed out or no longer coming to Explore. So this year the event team is going to record all the sessions for us, so we don't need V Brown Bag wasn't there. I forget who did it last year. One of the community guys, Martin,
Jeff,
a couple of guys helped us record that with Noel and others. This year the event team's going to do that, but they're going to sell some sponsorship slots, so there will be maybe 10 presentations over the course of 4 days that are sponsors. Now V Brown Bag used to do that. We always used to get a Dell or a NetApp, the standard guys that are buying, helping V Brown Bag pay to get there, right? So very much similar, except 80 seats. So
that'll be nice. Yeah,
for theater. A little bigger, and there's other stuff going on. And yes, passes for community, maybe some leadership passes, and then the tiered pricing for Explore this year, where you can buy a community pass for like under $800, something like that, for the week, which gets you into the hub, all the community sessions, and a couple other little benefits, but you don't get any food and you don't get any major the other sessions. But then they have another level that's like $1,200 or something like that. I don't know if they've announced this stuff. I thought they announced it, but there's going to be another level. It's going to be some more $1,200 or something that gets you
things and stuff.
hub sessions, but no food, no party, and then the full price, I think going to be under $2,000 is going to be everything. So tiered pricing, little cheaper. They're trying to bring the price down and then give you options depending on what you want to do at the show, which is kind of nice. Like feel like an airline.
Especially for some of the community guys who get sent there, right? And then they come in, they do their day job stuff there, then they come hang out with the community. Right. That's right. Perfect. You said that and I just, smile ear to ear. I love hearing that.
Yeah. And I looked at the flight costs. Yeah.
Yeah, and the freedom to go choose your own destiny as far as food and all that stuff too. That's kind of nice, the
It is. It really is.
get out and you're not paying for something you're not using necessarily in that. So
And then, I can just borrow Bob's badge if I'm really hungry, right? And just,
yeah, impersonate me. Bob is eating 4 lunches today.
4 lunches today. We're joking.
Yeah, I would never do that.
Never do that.
Bad, illegal maneuver.
No, just humor, guys. Just humor.
Yes.
But I think last year we did a blog article how to get to Explore for under like $500 plus your ticket, right? And one of them was how to get your food without having to pay for food, and how to get places. And the flights from Frontier almost anywhere in the U.S. is like $89. So like,
yep. And there's local and regional flights too, because the casinos sponsor that sort of stuff. So like, I can get a flight out of just south of me, out of Rockford, Illinois for like $100 round trip to get to Vegas. There's weird times and stuff like that.
Right.
But there's good options in that regard.
Yeah. The thing I couldn't solve for in the blog article is the pass, right? This pass was still $2,100. So I had to say, well, how to get to Explore for $2,500? $499 was a coupon cutting, flying around the world twice to get in for free. You take your miles, sell them on eBay,
Nothing like an 8-hop airline trip or whatever through Newark and all that stuff going the wrong way. I hate going the wrong way.
I flew back from Tennessee. That was where the conference was last week. And I call the airlines going, hey, I'm getting in at midnight. If I leave a little earlier, can I get in a little bit earlier? And they went, oh, yeah, you can. Yeah, we can get you in at 9 p.m. If you leave like 1 hour earlier out of Nashville. I'm like, oh, that sounds great. That sounds great. I'm good. Awesome.
Yeah, I think I drove right past you guys last week in Nashville. We were on our way down and back from Florida for spring break, and it was cool to see. You guys were at Opryland, weren't you?
Yeah, Opryland. Yeah. Interesting place. I got to tell you,
I've never been there. I'm very curious about it.
It's a snapshot of America, right? And I should say America.
Yeah.
America. They were just
bacon
like
and guns,
bacon and guns and cheerleader groups, because this place is massive and they have a lot of different conferences going on. It's like a hotel with it's like a big complex with like 5 major hotels that all have a big glass, massive atrium, like you'd see at a football stadium or something, connecting all these hotels. Indoor, jungle, tropical plants in this big giant atrium that connects the 5 hotels. And then one of the hotels is the event center, right? Another is the opera house where the Grand Ole Opry now, performs. And then just hotels and the river rides and goofy, a little bit of like Disney World-ish kind of stuff. But in the event center, it's so big that there were like probably 6 events going on, including ours, right? And one of them was like a cheerleader, for teen cheerleader. And so there were moms and cowboy boots all dressed up.
Imagine. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. But that's not the good one. There was another event, kindergarten aged beauty contests. And there were lines.
You can't imagine. Yeah.
You can't imagine. It was like, and then the parents, the people that do that kind of stuff is like, they're pretty heavy in the makeup stuff too. So it was, and then they're carrying banners. There were little kids that all have massive backpacks with like a little frilly stuff, and then they all have their hands on each other's shoulder in like a snaky line because they're trying to keep track. It was absolutely interesting. And then the community conference was a conference that the Higher Logic platform we use at Broadcom to run the VMTN forums, right? So we were there. IBM uses it. Marius Cortana was there from IBM. He used to work for us at VMware, if you remember Marius, but he started the code program way back when, and he was there. So there were a couple enterprise, but everybody else, Higher Logic comes out of DC, and they're all associations, right? So the Civil Engineers for Tall Building Association community. You're like, literally, that was their name. And there were 2, people
kind of a niche it would seem, but I don't know.
Niche. Amnesty International was there. A lot of women's groups were there. So you have people that had tie-dyed hair and like all kind of eclectic, even in
Snapshot
our
of
own.
America, like you said.
That's what I
That's
say.
really
I
cool.
was like, it was a snapshot, and then we were there. We were, the corporate crowd, and it was just like this eclectic view of America. Amazing. Yeah, so it was good. Anyway, I ended up getting my flight, and I should have checked to see where I was flying to in order to get, because they took me over to Dallas, right? And then if you've ever been into Dallas, you got to take the little trains around, and it was fine. It was good, but you get the free flights or lower price flights, whatever. You generally put a little more time in the airline seat in order to get there.
Yeah.
Fun times. All right, so let's move on. Corey, thanks for stopping by.
Yep.
Always good to
Thanks,
see
guys.
you. And we're going to talk a little bit about Home Lab. So, Bob, I know.
Can I inject one other thing
Sure.
before we get a couple of news things that stuck out? There's a couple of security vulnerabilities that have been released, and if you haven't been paying attention to that, or if you're not getting the email anymore, some changes to the email list. Go out to the security advisory thing here. Let me share my screen here.
Right.
Yeah, and go to the page here. You can just find it, Cloud Foundation or whatever. But more importantly, there's the sign up for security alerts here, and you can't use Gmail and Hotmail email addresses anymore.
Nope.
Don't get me started. It's a whole thing. But if you haven't seen them, there's a VMware Tools one, there's an ARIA Operations one, and then there's the ESX one from a month ago at this point now. Other things too, not to step in it here, but if you haven't seen the updates to how you download software,
I want to talk about that. Yes, let's talk about that one. Right.
This is changing some of that, and it's not the most popular thing on the planet, but it's happening. And so there's a blog post out on blogs.vmware.com/Cloud Foundation, and working well. Thank you to your team, Eric, for fixing up the blogs and stuff. But new blog post here from product management about how to what you need to do and what it means for you and all that stuff. And there's 2 KB articles to follow. There's a script that'll update your vCenter and all that stuff automatically for you if you get the download token. So I just wanted to mention that, so there are no surprises. You go after April, or I think it's after April 24th. The existing download URL.
You're going to have to go to this blog article and do a little work in order to be able to download. Right.
In a pinch, you can still download the patch ISO for vCenter, mount it up and patch locally and all that sort of stuff. But, get this done ahead of time. Now that I'm back from vacation, I'm also updating the firewall rule sets and things like that, what we publish for firewall rules to reflect these download URLs, the new ones and that. So if there's any questions there, people can reach out to me or just wait. It'll be.
So if we had to do Cliff Notes summary here, the download URLs are changing. And is there a process change, or is it just you have to do this work in order to connect to the new location to download things?
You have to do this work, and it involves a download token that's associated with your support.broadcom.com account, your site ID and stuff like that. Right. So you go get that. You follow the directions here. You go get that. You give that to the script that they're providing. We're providing, I guess, and that is provided, and that'll update your installs with the correct URLs and put the token in it and stuff like that. So
this blog shows you how to go get your token, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then you get your token, run some stuff on it to insert that token, and now you'll go talk token to token and get your patches.
Yeah, it'll authenticate you to the site, and then you can get your downloads just same way you've been doing before.
I need to understand that, because it does impact the home lab environment, because
it does.
Patches are not going to be available unless you have a site ID, right? Unless you're a customer.
Yeah. You're not. Well, it's really important as we've talked several times now. It's really important for people in the community, the V experts, all that stuff. To have if you're a VMUG member, VMUG Advantage, all that stuff, to have your email address at your VMUG Advantage be the same as a login to support.broadcom.com, that sort of thing, so that there's unity across all that stuff, and all of our systems can find you and merge you together.
Right. And that's what I would say, that the one gotcha will be for some people. If you don't if you're not a customer, right, and you don't have a customer site ID that you can use, you won't be able to get patches for your home lab machines. You do have to be a customer somewhere, right? We give you the license, we give you everything you need to, go download your bits and get that. And they do update the download, but they're not putting patches up there. There was a vCenter patch, there was 7 gig patch that was there, but it's basically only a few. And so this is where it is kind of a hole in the advantage.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure that one out somehow.
Right. Is how could you go download some patches without needing to mess with your corporate site ID?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we know about that, but we don't have a fix for it. Yep. So we're aware. But in the meantime, get your patch. Yeah. Share a patch with a friend.
Or maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what the
maneuver. Yeah, I didn't see anything. Just don't tell us about it. That's all.
I don't know what the deal is on any of that. Right? Like what is it? You're probably supposed to go get it with your site ID. That's probably true.
There's still a mechanism to download some of that stuff as promised to the EU and things like that. So there are ways to do it. But just be aware of it. I'm not fully versed in all of the ways this can work in that, so I'm bringing attention to it. So.
Yeah, I know that Fusion Workstation also hit this, where Fusion and Workstation have auto patching embedded in the product, and that stopped working as well. Right? Like whoops, no. So they have a manual process you can go do it, but in Fusion Workstation it was automatic. You just go patch me, and it would just go do it. Now you have to go get the patch manually and pull it down and insert it. So they're working on some of that stuff. Some of it they'll fix. I don't know what about Fusion Workstation.
Well, and we're teaching Broadcom some things too, and that's actually one of the subplots here is that as this goes, some of the stuff Broadcom hadn't thought about before, and so we're working it out with them and things. So,
but what I would actually say is that from my visibility, it's not Broadcom. Everybody goes, oh Broadcom. Yeah. No, VMware implemented the memory tax, right? We did our, we did our own stuff as we were trying to make a new workflow or change the way we sold things, and the division, the VCF division, is run by VMware people, right?
Well, it is, and in the process of consolidating some of the stuff too and standardizing it, like. VMware was a bunch of different business units, and we're not a bunch of different business units anymore. Right. So, figuring all this stuff out and removing the seams between the products and all that stuff. Yeah, it's a process. So.
There have been a fair number of things that Broadcom did that now we are, undoing and fixing, and Broadcom's very nice about it. They've been great. We've been great, working as one team. And so I would say, and that a lot of the things that people are, upset about aren't really having to do with Broadcom, right? Yeah. They had to do with memory, the memory tax, where we wanted to move in that direction.
Decisions we've made in the past, yes.
Right? And we wanted to get there, but couldn't get there. Memory tax we had to back away from because we just couldn't make it stick.
That was what, like 15 years ago or
15 years ago. But now. We want to know you're a customer, right? So we at VMware have known for years that people share software and use it illegally and, aren't customers, but are using it in data centers. And Microsoft eventually figured out how to get that all under control, right? And charge their customers for ELAs. Yeah. And I think VMware has struggled over the years to do that. And now I think they're just making progress with the switch over to new Broadcom systems. They're also
opportunity to fix some of the stuff.
Yeah, fix some of that stuff. And for some of the customers that aren't used to actually using a corporate email address to interact with us, we're pretty loose and free with all that, right? And but VMware always wanted to clean that stuff up. Let's be sure it's nothing to do with the Broadcom people. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Happening at the same time.
Yeah, my 2 cents. So anyway, getting back onto Connect, and so we were cruising along here. I did want to talk a little bit about, and apologize for our guest no showing up, but I did want to talk about the Home Lab vExpert Nooks and what I've been up to, right? And Bob's going to help me later because I get stuck on these things a little bit.
Well,
right?
we should talk about DNS a little bit, but yeah, why don't you get into your?
I'll take it. So the idea was we had these Nooks. They're a 4-core Celeron processor, and VCF's coming out, and I'm like, I wonder, much the way we put Kubernetes on a Raspberry Pi 3, right? The little 1 gig, and we managed to, everybody say couldn't be done, and we read that 7,000 times. But being a guy
challenge accepted,
Yeah, challenge accepted, right? Like, what do we have to unscrew? What do we have to solder on in order to make this little guy? And it ends up looking like, a very scary thing. But we took that as something that would be fun to investigate, and then come back to the Connect conference and report on it. At the same time, we also have William and Frankie and me looking at how do you get the full VCF stack legit on a Nook, right? Like that you don't have to turn it into Frankenstein in order to make it work. But we also thought the Frankenstein model would be to take this little vExperts and vExpert Nooks that we had, which is 4-core Celeron processor, and see how far we get. And so that's what we've been up to. And then also see what can be done with tiered memory, right? Like can you run tiered on a Nook, and what does it take to run tiered memory on a Nook? And so that was kind of the thing. And we've made great progress on the $800 Nook, because there are AMD 16-core Nooks now that you can get for about $800 from AMD. It has 16-core CPU, and VCF, when you're installing, checks the number of cores. And if you have 16, it'll let you proceed. If you have less than 16, it just says, sorry, not enough cores, right? So,
oh, really?
Yeah, so and there are a lot of community people that are reporting their home lab machines to go to try to install VCF 5.2, and it just says, sorry, you don't have enough cores, right? You have to have 16. So we've confirmed 16 will install. There's an AMD there's a Nook, and so we've been doing that. But on the vExpert Nook, which is a Max Tang Celeron 4-core. Obviously, you don't have enough 4 cores, but there is a way that you can install vSphere, set up vSAN, install NSX, and then manually install the STDC manager. So if you look at what VCF actually is, it's vSphere, NSX configured, and then an STDC manager installed on top of that. And if you're manually installing this stuff, the installer, you're not really using them installers, you're just doing it. So the little checks to make sure you have enough cores during the install process might be avoided, right? So we're like, okay, and then can we then turn on tiered memory as well? And so that's where we've been chunking. But the first thing we had to do on this guy is the Max Tangs are only rated to 16 gig of memory, right? Or but then we discovered that you can get two 16s and put them in instead of 2 8s, and they work with 32 gig. And then we're like, well, if that works, why don't we try 2 32s, see if we can get 32s? And you can get 32s. We have 32s in, and sure enough, we got the little Max Tangs to come up and run properly with 64 gig of memory. And we're like, okay, that's getting legit. If you can get tiered memory, and then we're like, well, you need a PCIe drive in order to
some sort of NVMe PCI based thing. Memory tiering is super cool, and that's right. And there's hardware memory tiering, which is a different thing I learned. So some of the CPUs would support hardware tiering at the VM level, but we're talking overall vSphere software level tiering, which is in vSphere 8. vSphere 8, ESX 8
update 2. And beyond, so that you can do the software, which isn't hardware related, but they do need the CPU that has the virtual stack enabled, right? You know how Intel built virtual capability into
the virtual the VT extensions and stuff like that.
Right. And then they also need the network extensions. Memory extensions. There's CPU extensions and memory extensions.
Yeah,
And
you have to use
so, yeah, you need
somewhat
both.
recent CPU. Yeah.
Right. Recent CPU, which the Nooks, the vExpert Nooks from 2019, right? MaxTime did have the latest CPU that had virtualization chip enabled, whatever I forget the acronym they use for it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for memory tiering, it didn't have the memory chip controller that was extra. And one of the things they say when you read about it is, the memory controller that you need for that virtually gets pretty hot, and so you won't find a Nook that doesn't have a fan that has that chip. It's impossible to keep them cool. You need fans. And so the new Nook that we're at, the $800 Nook, has a fan. Pretty quiet, but it nonetheless has a fan. The old Nook, so memory tiering's out, but that doesn't stop VCF from showing up. Then, but we did buy a PCIe converter that will go. The Nook didn't have PCIe bus. It had a different bus. It has a SATA bus and it has a Wi-Fi card bus, but there is a converter chip that you can buy, then plug in, and then plug your PCIe disk in it. So we got that. Got our PCIe. Got 256 gig of PCIe storage because we were planning on running tiered, but then found out we couldn't. But we did upgrade, and then we got a 500 gig SATA drive in the other slot. So we got 2 drive slots, which gets us 750 gig of space. And so we got that going. We got the 64 gig of memory, but we'll be limited to 64 gig of memory. And then we got 4 cores, right? So, all right, that's good. Got ESX installed on it. The Nooks had the wrong Ethernet dongle. So we had to go get an Ethernet dongle, and there's a blog article that tells you how to boot ESX without any networking. It fails 3/4 of the way through, but it leaves enough of ESX installed that you can reboot it. Doesn't have a password set because it didn't make it all the way through the install. I learned that the hard way after rebooting like 6 times, trying different combinations of password, just to realize that no, if your ESX doesn't install all the way, you don't get a password set. It just leaves it blank. So you go in and blank, and then you can go edit RC file. There's a blog article on how to edit on a network RC file that will then, and you put in some code that says go automatically find this USB Ethernet and make it the default Ethernet for ESX. So managed to get that running, got ESX up and running, and away we go. Right. So I'm like, yay. And we got like 750 gig of storage. Yeah, SATA and PCIe, and then 64 gig of memory. What could go wrong, right? Really,
I don't know. All of these contortions just make me think. So the way I went is I just went to. I've got some space, so I've got 4 desktop class machines or whatever. Right. I don't have the Nukes,
right?
And I got a motherboard that supports 3 or 4. I think it's 4. NVMe drives and stuff like that. So I don't know, all these contortions with the little machines makes me wonder if some folks wouldn't consider going with the larger form factor thing that you can put whatever cards you want in and stuff like that too. But I think it's really cool that you're able to get what you can get in just a box that's like just tiny,
tiny little box. And without the fan, it's cool to have VMs running. Yeah. Where you're going in on your laptop and going into vCenter, and it's like, there it is. You got your embedded ESXs, and you're looking, and it's just running there on this little silent chipset, right?
Well, and this is not. I mean, all of this seems like science lab sort of stuff, but there's commercial organizations that are running the stuff in the field, little vSAN clusters out on the edge. There's wind power generation, wind farms and stuff like that, where there's clusters in each of the windmills for control and stuff like that. And 2 nodes, and they're exactly what you're describing. This is not some weird science project duct tape and bubble gum sort of thing, or maybe it is, but
it is for me. But it is,
yeah. But for a number of organizations, especially if you're using, because there's the Intel 2.5 gig NICs, the i225s or whatever that William Lamb has done a lot of work with engineering to get those to be supported natively in the shipping product. It's not that's not a science experiment anymore. It's not an add-on driver anymore. It's right in there, and that enables so much little hardware, because that's sort of if you stay inside of that, or the Realtek, some of the Realtek drivers too, if you stay inside those drivers, you've got a whole lot of hardware that's available to you, to do real things with, and so that's
And the other thing is, you don't have any moving parts with fans. For the thing, it's just electronic chips there. That's good for a long time, right? They'll just run and run and run and run. Right?
And the failure rate of things that don't move, not much. I mean, NVMe and this is actually something that I don't think a lot of people understand about NVMe. NVMe is actually a consumable part. Every time you write to a flash device, it writes with enough voltage to set the bits, but that voltage destroys it a little bit, and over time it wears it out, and so NVMe devices, real NVMe devices, not the USB flash sticks and things like that, these little things, but those things are dumb and will let you write a hole right in them, SD cards as well. But real devices will do wear leveling and things like that, and to help prevent that. But aside from that, and sizing your writes correctly for your stuff, it'll run forever. And,
That's it. Just well, and for me, it's like I'm used to. I have a rack in San Jose with super micros that make a ton of noise, and they're beefy machines.
Yeah, and who wants that? You don't want that in your house,
Right, exactly, right. That's exactly, and even power, right? Like this little guy doesn't use but like 60-watt power supply, right? So it means that even when I have it turned on, it's not going to use very much power, right? So I like that. So it's kind of fun, but I'm learning. Go to install vCenter server. You download the ISO. I'm using the Advantage license, so I passed my VCP VCF exam. Well, they marked me as passed. I didn't actually take the test.
Well, you didn't have to say that.
It's good to be God, right? Like, hey, go flag me as.
I'm going to take my exam at Connect.
I'm gonna. I've done all the courses. I have to do the STDC manager training thing, and then I'm gonna go take it. I probably could pass now anyway, but now I'm officially passed, and I'm like, well, I don't know. But anyway, all right, this is an aside. We're going up, but you have to make your emails match. And Bob Plankers, if you take your exam with your Broadcom email,
negative, Ghostwriter. I'm registered as bob@plankers.com. So
you want that because then if you leave VMware or Broadcom, you still
leave VMware. No way.
Just saying, if it happened, right? Nobody leaves intentionally right around here. Then you still have, home lab licenses because you're not on and the Advantage program will not give you licenses if you're a Broadcom employee. They block Broadcom employee email addresses when you come into the portal. It goes up, no, you're Broadcom. Go over here. Right, because Broadcom gives
it from the internal build system.
Yeah, internal. But so that means that but in my blog article, I say how to go change your even if you took your exam, you can tell Broadcom, hey, I want my exam email to be, eric.nielsen@eric.com or whatever, right? And you can change that. So it's never too late to change it. So, but if you're taking your VCF and your employee VCF exam, maybe don't use your Broadcom.
What was that song back in the 90s or whatever from the Breeders? Keep them separated, so
exactly. So anyway, got my bits from Advantage. Bits came down, got my license keys. That's all worked. So I'm pretty happy about that. And then went to install vCenter server, and it bitched that can't do it from Mac. Mac says it just popped up and said your bits are no good. Little pop up. Your bits have been corrupted.
it's got the same opinion of Max I do, I think. So, oh, sorry, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, exactly. So I go re-download them again. It's like 14 gig, and I'm doing it off my slow Wi-Fi here. I just went to work and came back, and it was there. Okay, it looks the same. Everything looks good. I didn't check MD5 checks. I didn't do the checksum. I just okay. Try to do it again. Same error. Google it. Oh yeah, it's Bob Planker's fault. Max Security.
Oh.
Yeah, Max Security won't let the vCenter server installer install. So sorry, can't do it. Nope. All right. Yeah. And it's not in our product documentation, right? Because Apple changes their security model every time you get a new OS, right? Yeah. And so you can't keep up, right? And I'm sure the vSphere 8 update 3 people for vCenter didn't know that there was going to be a security change, or they didn't bother, one of the two.
Yeah, well, or they've got the security shut off on their stuff because they ran into this a while ago and and didn't think.
Yeah, and they turned it off and they've been good. But there is a CLI command, so Broadcom does have an article up in the
knowledge-based article.
Yeah, knowledge that says here's what you do. I did it 3 steps, easy, and away we go. Go install vCenter server. Next thing you get is doing home lab. You need the DNS. You need a DNS server.
Yeah.
Why, Bob?
Why do you need DNS?
Well, yeah. Why?
Well, you want to find things on the internet, right? And so
no, but it's some home lab. It's just on my table. I'm not even connecting to the internet. It's awful.
Yeah. Well, and so Eric asked me about this before the show, and we were talking about this a little bit. And my inclination to start with, if you just need forward DNS, an A record or quad A record for IPv6, you could use the free tier of Cloudflare. Put a domain on it, but that's only forward. If you try to do reverse, Cloudflare's. You try to look up the RFC 1918 IP addresses, the 192.168s or the 172.16s and 10.0, the whole 10 subnet. You can't do reverse because everyone has different stuff there or whatever. So if you need the reverse, and VCF and vSphere do care about reverse DNS,
right?
And you're going to have to invent something to do that reverse DNS resolution locally. You're going to have to create a little bit more infrastructure. I was suggesting to Eric. So Eric was, you were thinking about about doing like a Unix-based, Linux-based bind thing, the unbound DNS. There's various appliances with that built in. I think the OPN Sense firewall thing has got appliance has got unbound DNS in it as well. I mean, you can install bind on a host. Here, in fact,
right. I was looking at SUSE with bind, right? And there's a blog article by somebody that takes you through setting up your DNS with.
And you can install that or whatever, and that's actually what I've got running here. I've got a couple of name servers, and they're set up to be. I use Keep Alive D to detect whether one of them is down or not if I'm patching it, and it'll take over the IP address of the other one, that sort of thing. That's probably more complicated than most people want to get, and truth be told, I set it up many years ago and I've just been copying the configs forward. I'm a lazy sysadmin in that regard. So, once you figure it out once, you can kind of just deal with it. But one of the things about the here, and I've got my screen going here, or maybe I can make it a little larger. One of the things about the Unix-based ones is there's a particular zone file format for it, and like I've got the FCOTR is the old joke, the Fiber Channel over Token Ring Association or whatever, and we've got actually this is a bad one. I'll look at the Moss Biolabs. If you're a William Gibson fan, that's the Moss Biolabs. But one of the nice things about Cloudflare is it'll actually dump if you put all of your DNS up in there, it'll dump out a zone file that you can import elsewhere. And so I did that, and it's got a particular format to it, which can be a little tricky, especially if you're going this route. So there's an origin at the top, and mind the periods after the domains. because the root of all DNS is just dot. Okay. And so if you leave out that dot, it'll append other domain, it'll append your domain searches to it.
Right on it. Right. Yeah.
So, and so the origin up here, I could just list whatever, but there's a particular format here. And so you've got the name, and then you've got a timeout value, the time to live, and that's in seconds. So I set all mine to 5 minutes, basically 600 seconds, so that when I'm changing stuff, I hate when I change something in the lab and then I have to wait 4 hours or whatever the default is to actually, do anything with it, because I'm waiting for DNS to time out, that sort of thing. And so I set mine to 600 seconds, 5 minutes, and that's that. And then you've got the IP addresses, but more interesting, that's the forward lookup. You need to do a reverse lookup too. So you configure basically the here, hang on a second. I need to find one that's got something in it here, like and so you can do the reverse as well. And there's a particular format for the reverse too, where it's basically so you define, in this case, it's 172.18.0 is the beginning. And then you can what I'm doing is I'm defining the individual DNS, like the last octet, basically 53, 54. Those are my resolvers, in fact. And then it's a PTR record, a pointer record that you set up there. And again, mind the period at the end. You need a dot at the end of this, but it's not hard, but you need to set these files up, and then you need to set up your etc named.conf the correct way and stuff like that. What I was suggesting to you, Eric, was actually just using, if you've got access to Windows, you've got a license key or an eval or something like that. What you can do is actually just stand up an Active Directory domain controller. You can just stand one of them up. And so this is basically a fresh install of Windows Server 2025. And then what you can do is add roles and features. And you can go in and add the Active Directory domain services. You add that as a feature, and then you add a DNS server. You actually could just add the DNS server itself by itself too. But if you're doing this, might as well do Active Directory, because then you can do authentication stuff with it and some of the other stuff. And then you just advance through this basically. And here, in fact, I'll just do it right now. I'll just tell it to install, and it'll do it. And then there's a process to promote. To create an Active Directory domain controller, you need to give it a couple of passwords and things like that, and that'll show up in the server manager in the warnings here. It'll say, "Hey, finish the process, promote this to an Active Directory domain controller," and then there's a few setup things. But and you could just create a DNS server as well. You got to set up zones and stuff like that in it. But just remember to do the forward and back. And another important safety tip is make all your stuff either uppercase or lowercase. VCF, when you install it, is not case sensitive. DNS in general is case sensitive, but VCF is not. We know about it. Well, it's in the roadmap to fix it. But so if you enter into your VCF 5.2 spreadsheet, the deployment spreadsheet, or into future versions of the installers, and that you enter uppercase letters, and your DNS is actually lowercase, it'll mismatch, and then you'll scratch your head and wonder.
Not resolved. Right. All right. That sounds like Active Directory it is then, right?
Maybe. I think it's easier, frankly, because then you'll just get an Active Directory widget, little app or whatever. You can create your zones. You can create forward and reverse. And the nice thing too is when you create a new entry, you can check the little box to create the corresponding reverse entry as well. And so,
now vCenter also, I hadn't got to this yet, so I'm going to go set up DNS this afternoon, right? Get the home lab environment going so I can ship it off to Connect. I need SSL also, right? Or does it just make its own keys so the vCenter?
It'll make its own keys. Okay. Yep. So when you install vCenter server, it looks like, people call it a default certificate, but it's not. It's created on demand every time you do a new install. So it's unique to your vCenter instance. But and you can replace that. Actually, I've got instructions on how to do that and all the things you need to think about. But Yeah, it'll manage itself in that regard. If you want to replace that certificate with something else, you can do that. But otherwise, you can just download. In fact, if you go to the here, let me find the vCenter server here, one of my vCenter servers. What you can do, download the trusted root CA certificates in the bottom right of the vCenter client, basically the initial page when you get there. You can download these trusted root certificates and import them into your Mac or Windows PC or Linux or whatever you're using as a trusted root, and then it'll show up as green. I've done that here, and so I can.
Where'd you get this from?
So if you just go to your vCenter main page,
okay. Main page. Got it. All right.
Yeah, before you hit launch vSphere client, you can download trusted root CA certificates and import them into your local desktop or whatever you need to care about it. And so I've done that here, and it now says connection is secure, and certificate is valid. I've actually replaced it with an intermediate CA. I was helping some customers work on this or whatever, but yeah, you can do that, and then it's trusted. It's all good. So.
All right, so that's today's journey. Set up my DNS, then I'm setting up vSAN, doing I think 3. It's gonna 2 actives and a resolver. What do you call it? Like when you have to have the extra ESX that resolves when split brain needs permission. When you can't get one, who's authoritative?
Oh, quorum. Yeah, that's why you build 3 node clusters, is because you can't have a tie. It's kind of like board meetings and things,
Yeah. So I'm going to do that. I don't think I'm going to do 5. I could stripe it, right? Which would be kind of fun to have, right? But that requires 5 ESX on my NUC, right? And I still want to try to get an NSX installed. That's the extra bit. And if I really get extra, then I'm going to try to manually install the SDDC manager, and then you do have VCF, right? And it'll run slow. It's going to run slow, but and then we do have the 2 faster NUCs. We're going to do it again, and then turn on tier just for the fun of it. Yeah. So that's the lab, and then we're going to run hardline. We're going to set up a table, 2 tables, 8-person tables. We're going to put the ESX servers at the end of the table with a real monitor, right? just sitting, buzzing, right? And then everybody have a hard line into the ESX local net. But then all the stations will also have Wi-Fi in them, so they can go out on the internet and pull down documents and pull down slides, that kind of stuff, while we're doing the lab. And then also SSH in to the ESX server, and then we're going to do some vSAN CLI stuff. Frankie's got some vSAN CLI stuff he's going to run through, and that'll be the lab. Kind of fun. And we're going to have the NUCs opened up so you can look at them and see the Frankenstein hack job. We actually had to take in order to get the PCIe 256 gig in, we had to shave off part of the green board of the chip. So we got our Microsoft, make sure there were no lines, or if there was a couple lines we had to cut, but we cut them because they were going to nowhere. They were dev null lines, and
a lot of those smaller devices too, they've got a wireless network interface on them that you can unplug, and you get an extra PCI.
That's what we use. Yeah. But it was a wireless slot, but it wasn't PCI. But you could buy a little converter board that went into that slot that then gave you a PCI.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, PCI slot. And so
bring my Dremel tool is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what we Dremeled, and there was a metal case around one of the Ethernet jacks, and we had to kind of grind away some of that as well to make it a little Frankenstein-y. But now we have we'll see how far we get. We're still going. We still got 3 more weeks, so that's a long time in the land of hacky. So should be fun. And looking forward to being out. Yeah,
Tony out in the chat. I just remembered I should look at the comments here. And the OpenSense or OPN Sense stuff is just a Linux appliance. But Tony had just commented, are the labs going to be neatly cabled? And I'm thinking to myself, everything's neatly cabled for about 10 minutes at the beginning, right? So
Yeah, I forget. We did labs at Vegas last year, and somebody helped us put all the machines, and they gave us tiny tables, like little mini tables, and there was no way to fit everything on these. They made like literally 2.5 feet wide tables. It was ridiculous, right? For two on each side, right? So we didn't specify, for so somebody
saying
helped
that was
us,
me,
and
him.
somebody decided to twist tie every single cable into a neat little bundle, and then they brought us wider tables, but we had such tight cabling. Whoever helped set it up, you couldn't move anything without unwinding every single cable, right? It took us forever. And was that you, Tony, or was it somebody else that did all the nice little table cable tie knots, turned everything into knots? Yeah, it was. Must have been
saying in the chat that or in the comments on YouTube that it was him. So
it was. Yeah, I blame Corey Romero. I was like,
use Velcro. These Velcro, you can get them off of Amazon for pretty cheap. Velcro. I've got one because I've been recabling.
He did a good job, but you know how I cable? I just throw cable after cable, and then if you need to move something, you just yank it. You just yank it, and it makes the knot of cables a little tighter. But you always got some flexibility in your rat's nest. You start getting all neat and twist tie, and you can't move any of it. It's like frozen, and you keep it all strung all over the place.
We gotta keep you out of data centers, man.
Yes, yeah. You should keep me out of data centers. And you should keep me out of coding. Because I'll be like commenting, this stuff sucks. I hate this. Curse.
Swearing at the computers in your comments.
Yeah. Variable names that are, one character long.
Like, oh, you can use more than one character? Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah. Like, with a note that says, good luck trying to figure out what this is, Chat GPT.
The magic happens here. Yes.
Yeah, right. So kind of fun. It's fun. I don't get much time to get out and hack on things. And I've learned a couple things installing this stuff. Like, hey, you read about it manuals, you take your certification, but there's nothing like getting real hardware under a microscope with a Dremel.
Oh, here. Before we leave here or whatever, we're getting to the end. I just want to show the post of, so my Active Directory domain service is completed, and so there'll just be a thing in the little flag at the top of Server Manager that you can promote the server to a domain controller, and so you'll just walk through it. You'll basically create a new forest, and you'll give it a root, whatever your zone is that you want. YOLO.
I can predict the future. I predict a Zoom call with Bob sometime tomorrow when I'm like, it's not working.
Yeah, well, I'm predicting that as well. But then give it a password.
There's lots of YouTube videos to take it through. That's the reason all you do.
It's actually pretty.
I normally would do Linux, but there's so many nice little YouTube videos on how to do Active Directory, setup.
It's just, the Linux side of things is fine. I like it a lot, but I've also got 20 years of experience screwing with it. So I know exactly when I try something and it doesn't work, I know the mistake I made. If you just want to get rolling, I think,
Also, I've experienced it when I go to the conferences. A lot of our customers use Windows and use Active Directory. So when I'm talking about, hey, how I had to set it up, right? Like just saying, and I put an Active Directory there and there's what it is. It's like, it's going to make more sense to a lot of people. Like, okay, yeah.
Well, and there's other options too. If you've got like I think the TrueNAS appliances have got Unbound built into them. There's probably something if you've got a little storage array like a Synology or something like that. There's probably something there too. Lots of different options, but
there you go. Anyway, fun day, Bob. Good to hang out with you and chat.
Likewise.
And I gotta ask whether Tony Foster made any. I see he's on chat. I don't think he's in on the stream, but did he do any barbecue? Anybody do any barbecue? I have not done anything the last week or so. Planted my garden. I guess that counts. I'm
looking forward to doing that. End of April is last frost here, so when I get back from Connect, I will get serious about. I've got all my seeds started. All my tomatoes are about that tall now.
Yeah. But I put in cucumbers. I put in cucumbers too early, and we got a little bit. We didn't get frost, but we got some chilly.
They don't like that.
They didn't
plant them again.
Yeah.
They grow like weeds anyhow, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's what I told my wife. I'm like, well, look, Yeah, we just buy a couple more. It's fine. Like we're just out there
On the
crying.
barbecue front, though, I will say that I took on our trip last week to Florida for spring break. I took the family to Buc-ee's, the giant gas stations.
Oh,
in the South
yeah,
or
right.
whatever. They've
Sure.
got
Yeah, yeah, Texas
they've
too.
got
Like,
good barbecue. Yeah, Texas.
Yeah.
The first one I've ever been to was in Texas. But one, they're absolute chaos. But two, the barbecue in there is pretty good, actually. My family is a fan of their smoked turkey, for example. So that was pretty cool. So
That's
crab
neat.
patties, egg rolls. Oh, Tony's talking about what he's been doing lately here. Steak and egg rolls. Nice.
When I was at the conference in Nashville, they got barbecue there, but we didn't get out. But we did have some awfully good steak. So somewhere in the middle of America, because Nashville's not in the East Coast. You think Nashville, Tennessee? You think it's over there in the Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina? But no, it's over under like kind of like Michigan, kind of down lower. But I see kind of middle America, right? Which they must have good cattle there, right? Because they got
a lot of space for cattle to roam, and they get plenty of rain to keep the grasses green for the cattle to eat and things. So it was good steak. Can't go wrong. We had a really good steak there. So hats off to the Nashville crowd, because they got some good cattle. They must have some pretty good cattle. All right, we're at the top of the hour. Thanks a lot for staying with us. If you can get to connect. If you can do a paper, submit a paper. And if you really listen to the end, you guys are troopers. Everybody have a great rest of your week, and we'll be back again next week as always. Until then, go get some barbecue. Thanks, Bob. Thank you, Eric.